So we picked up this electronic deadbolt from Home Depot for about $35, and it'll fit our door here. This is 1 1/8 inches. This fits doors up to 1 1/8 inches. It's 2 inches thick. So there's a variation there. With a 2 1/8 hole saw or a 54mm hole saw, we're going to use that to drill the hole right here, and then with a Forstner, it'll drill the hole where the deadbolt comes out. And then this one's a little bit smaller, so it's either this one or this one, and then that'll go right in there up here where the deadbolt is. This one is 1 inch and this one is 7/8. I'll go ahead and start unboxing this deadbolt. Looks like this part here lifts out, and like here's the back part to it, a panel, some hardware, all the instructions, keys, and then we'll take these screws out with the screwdriver. Now this just comes right off the package and everything separates. It comes with a template on the instructions, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. So you can choose to place this at 2 3/8 or 2 3/4. Now if we place this in the center at 2 3/4, it's actually gonna overlap this molding right here. And you can choose. It's not like one will work, one won't. We're gonna do it at 2 1/2 because that'll look a little bit more centered and it won't be overlapping on the molding. The typical deadbolt from the floor is about 40 3/8 centered. Now we're gonna mark that right at 40 3/8. So you got your template right here. What you do is you fold it on the line, you bring it there, and then this is our 40 3/8, and then we bring it there, and then we take an awl and punch right there. But this has a lot of play in it. What I did is I just took a ruler, measured 2 3/8, and put my mark right there so I know that it's right where I want it to be. Used an awl just to tap in that marking hole so our drill bit has somewhere to lead into. This bit is dull, so I'm gonna go ahead and drill my pilot hole with a little bit of a sharper bit, and once I get this straight through the door, then this has no way that it can veer off. Now let's see if I hit the line on the other side, and that looks good. Now we're gonna start drilling with the hole saw. When you're drilling, there's a lot of friction on this bit and it can heat up really quick. You wanna have water nearby where you can cool that off, because this can get really hot and you can actually re-temper the blade. So we're getting close to the end of the throat of this hole saw. You might be wondering, what if your board is thicker than that? Which in this case, this is. This hole, this drill bit that sticks out, I will then come in from this side, and since they're all along the same axis, they'll meet perfectly in the middle. Now we'll start drilling from the other side. Now we'll pull it out, and this is always a tricky part sometimes. Now we'll just set this in place, and that looks nice. Now right here it says we're gonna use a 1 inch bit or a 25mm bit to drill in and meet that hole we just drilled for the deadbolt. Now I'll mark where my center mark is gonna need to be. Now I'll go ahead and mark the center. Now we'll go ahead and drill our 1 inch hole. And just like all of the other bits, make sure you keep this one cool. One little tip is rocking your bit back and forth or in little circles, because it gives like pressure points, and you'll notice it starts cutting better that way. Just to keep the door supported, you can put your foot at the bottom, and that seems to hold it pretty well. So this has a distance adjust, so if you drilled it at one of those two distances, you can adjust this to fit that. I think we're the shorter distance. We put that in there. So I traced the outline of the faceplate right on there. And now here comes the hard part. Lots of chisel carving and lots of chisel work. So I made this wood mallet, especially for chisels, and I'm really excited to try it out. I haven't really gotten to use it yet. So this is a great opportunity to do that. I'm first gonna start by setting the lines. So I'll have a spot to work to. I'll kind of start from the middle and get those lines carved in. Now that I've got my outline all marked out, I'm going to start carving in, get that inset. Just keep working the chiseling around. You really don't want to go too deep. We're just taking light passes and I'm slowly working it down. And after working to that edge, once you get to that edge, everything just chips off. All right, now this fits in there just right. It actually holds itself in there, which is nice. When I put the actual deadbolt in, there's a little bit more thickness to it. There's a plate right here, so I'll need to carve in to match that. So I carved this a little deeper, and now that fits in there nice and flush. Now we'll go ahead and mark where we're gonna put those screws. Now we're gonna use some of the hardware. These are the 2 wood screws. See, you got coarse teeth on the front and then it goes back to fine teeth. Now let's go ahead and put these screws in. Now everything is nice and flush. In order to get enough batteries for this, I'm gonna have to take some out of the lightsaber. All right, now I'll pull out the battery, and we've got 4. Let's go ahead and load them up in here. So in order to set this, we're reading the instructions, and that is our default code, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we need to reset it, we'll press and hold set button until beep sound. Before I reset it, I just want to see if this works with the default code. Now with everything flush, we can go ahead and start putting the electronics in. Here's the keypad, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this in. Now our door it's like flipped from what this was built for. So normally you would be putting the lock in with this orientation with Defiant on top, but what we're gonna have to do is flip it upside down like that. And then also with the deadbolt, if you look on this side, it says up with the arrow pointing down. So we also had to flip the deadbolt. So basically the whole mechanism is flipped, but that's not a big deal. Everything still works fine. The wire goes in underneath. That threads through the deadbolt, comes out this side. And then we have this panel here, the arrow that says up, we're gonna put down. And then we also need to take the cable and run it through. It's a little tricky to do this with one hand, but you can do it. And then I can run this through that hole. Now we'll put these screws in. They run all the way through the door and attach to that lock on the front. Before we get those bolts too tight, we're gonna make sure everything is straight. Then we can really snug up these bolts. Now we'll plug this in. They have red paint on this side and on this side, so you know which way the plug goes in. And then this goes on like that. Make sure this tucks. There's little clips that goes into, so everything fits together nicely. So here's a tricky part that I was really struggling with. What would happen was I would lock the door, and then I could bring it back, pull the key out, and then if I wanted to unlock it, I would unlock it, and then I bring it back, and I wasn't able to pull the key out because it didn't like have enough travel to come back to this point where I can pull it out. So Then I had to pull the whole lock mechanism out, take it like another revolution, pull the key out, put it back in, and then put the key. It's hard to explain, but once you get in here and do it, you're gonna have you might have to take this mechanism out and then turn it a revolution where you can get the key out when it's in its closed position, then put it back in. It's a little tricky, and I'm not sure how I got it to that point, but it works now. Sometimes it's nice to put some tape on these brackets just to keep them from falling off. So we'll run it back and forth a few times just to make sure everything is running smoothly. Then we'll go ahead and lock it. Okay, and then we'll unlock it. There we go. Now we'll put these mounting screws in. Now we'll go ahead and snap on this shield. And if you ever want to get it off again, there's a tab over here and a tab over here. You have to squeeze those, and then that allows it to pull off. So from the inside, this moves back and forth smoothly. That's important because the motor on here isn't particularly strong. It's just enough to move the bolt. And then we'll bring it back. We'll put some tape on the end of it because the metal's just too shiny for any of it to stick. So now it definitely works better with the tape. You can see it's striking from here to here, so we know our center point is right there. So now we'll punch our center hole. Now I'll go ahead and drill out where the deadbolt's gonna go in the second door. So just with the hole drilled, I'm gonna test fit it. And that worked, that's actually really cool. And we'll unlock it. There it is, that's really cool. If you had a pre-drilled door where it already has everything chiseled out, it came with this where you could put it in there, but this would be so much work, a lot of chiseling to get this to fit, when really all we need to do is the chiseling for this faceplate, and then that's it. So now we'll line everything up and draw our marks. Now we're gonna chisel this out the same way we did before. Everything fits in here really nice. I got that all carved out, it's screwed in, and that's in place. Now we can go ahead and take the door, close it, and then it's that easy, it locks, and then we can unlock it. And that's slick. I like it. It was definitely a learning curve, learning how to put this all together. We ended up having to flip parts, but after all that hard work, this is super cool. I really like the electronic deadbolt. It turned out great.